Man, you've got quite a team and a setup going around here, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's impressive. I've seen it through the internet, but to come in here in person and just kind of see like what you've built here, it's very cool, man.
I appreciate that.
Excited to talk about it.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
And also, I love doing the in-person podcast. There's just no way to replicate what we've built here, what we have here online.
No,
so
you can't beat it.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy day, man. You're taking phone calls as I'm setting up camera gear. And, man, so cool. And Sam as well. Shout out over there for helping us get the cameras dialed in. Just give me how you identify yourself. How do you describe yourself? If someone says you're at a networking event or whatever, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, great question. I would say that, the line I like to use is all things real estate. I first got into this business back in the end of 2015 as a real estate agent, and have done a lot of different things within the real estate space. And there's really no way to encompass everything that I've been a part of without just saying all things real estate. So anything that relates to, residential buying and selling or off market, or helping agents build their business and, being that coach, that resource for them. And then on the commercial side too, done a lot of, high level consulting with bigger firms that are going after, properties all across the country. So I've done everything, in between the real estate space. I've touched all corners, and my passion is definitely helping people achieve their goals, whether you're looking to buy or sell, or whether you're looking to build your real estate business and, acquire wealth through those assets.
I'm excited to talk about all that because real estate is the American dream. Since we were young kids, it's a lot of people's dream to one day own or buy a house. And we now live in a world that it's very difficult to do so. I remember when I was growing up, I don't remember, but looking at the data, like the price of homes, and it just seems more out of reach for people. And so one of the things that I've seen through what you're doing and putting out in terms of content is kind of demystifying or breaking down some of those misconceptions. So talk to me about like, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about owning real estate, buying real estate? All the above.
It's fair. I think, the old adage always is applicable, which is, knowledge is power. And I think that there's so much information in this world. It's a world of information, right? You can find everything at just a swipe of a finger on your phone. You have access to everything for pretty much free. The problem is digesting all the information and understanding how to apply it to your goals or where you're at in life. And one of the biggest misconceptions that I have, that a lot of people have in their 20s, is you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to get started. You have to, know exactly what you're doing. When in reality, everybody really knows the truth. Everybody's just trying to figure it out. No one really knows what they're doing. It's those that are going to apply themselves and put their neck out there to take the risk that are going to actually level up and continue to build upon whatever they're trying to achieve. So for me, I always tell people that knowledge is power. Understand your clear direction. What are you looking to accomplish? What are your goals? Everybody has a different timeline. Everybody has different aspirations. Don't do what everybody else is doing just because that's what they're doing and that's what's working. Do what works for you and what's sustainable and what's going to be fulfillment, or what's going to fulfill your dreams, right? And I think with that, a lot of people get caught up in, I want to do what they're doing. I want to do what they're doing. What they're doing is so cool, and I think I can do it too, when in reality, that's not your goal. That's not what you're looking to accomplish. So the biggest misconceptions are you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to start. You need to know how to do everything from A to Z. When in reality, you just need to take that first step. And that first step will lead you to the second step. It'll lead you to the third step. But finding those issues out and solving the problems and overcoming the obstacles within those steps is where your growth happens, right? The growth is in the gray. It's right between the first step and the second step and the second step and the third step. You have to be willing to take the leap and then figure out the rest along the way.
Well said, man. Definitely that 0 to 1. There's so much friction there. I was the last month, I've been journaling on one topic, which is what do you want? Very simple prompt.
I like that.
One prompt. And what I've found is I want a lot of things, but having clear priorities of, what do I want? What's number one on that list? And then really orienting, like aligning your actions with your values, I think is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of just the stuff around mindset, and it gets very cliche. You hear all these things online, and to your point too, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like right now we got Sam filming behind the scenes over there. Sam, if you want to cut in front of this camera and shoot over from this side to get a 6 shot of Blake, you're more than welcome to. Come right in front of that camera. So you don't know, dude. Like these guys, they project, a lot of people project wealth and success. And when you find out that behind the scenes, they're struggling just like we're all human, they're struggling. Maybe they're in debt, maybe they're behind on, payments, whatever. Ultimately it's a competition against yourself from the day before. There's no competition between like you and I or anyone else in this world, right?
No. And I think a big issue these days is that it is so easy for people to put anything online and make it believable.
Sure.
Because perception is reality. So the bummer is a lot of people have this misconception that all these people are crushing it. They've got, all these businesses and all this money coming in. And in reality, no matter how successful you are, it's hard. And you're always putting out fires, and every day is a different adventure, especially as a business owner and as a leader and an entrepreneur. And so I think where that comes into play is understanding, okay, what can I control, right? You don't want to look outside of what your reality is and try and compare yourself to that, because everybody starts somewhere. And at the end of the day, you don't know what's true and what's not true.
Right.
So focus on what you have right in front of you, and that's all that's going to matter. And that's a big thing right now I'm realizing is there's so many people that I looked up to. There's a lot of people that I thought were, very successful in their line of work. And when you actually come to find out the truth behind what's going on, it's very sobering, because it makes you realize, okay, you know what? I can do this. And if I do this the right way and I do it my way, it's going to be more sustainable than those that were doing it not the wrong way, but the way of, hey, I'm going to show you what I'm doing before I'm even doing it.
Sure.
Why not do it first and then talk about it?
I like that. I met this guy this summer. I was up in Alaska on a river rafting trip. This guy, he left a piece of wisdom with me. You know when someone just shares something with you and it just sticks?
I got to take that one with me.
There's only 2 things you control: attitude and effort. At the end of the day, success is not guaranteed. But if you have to enjoy the process, I guess, is one thing that I've learned. So, just to jump in on this whole, I know you're building a Skool community.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what you're building there, why you're doing it, what drives you to put the time in.
So for me, it's more of an all-encompassing, education platform. It's 100% free. I'm not looking to sell any courses or, monetize it by any means in the near future. What it really is catered towards is providing value to people with the information that I wish I would have had when I first got into business. We've talked about this. You don't know what you don't know. There's so much you get into this business, whether it's real estate, whether it's finance, whether you're in, the tech world. It doesn't really matter, because there's such a long and difficult learning curve once you get out of college or get out of your years of internship or the first few years of whatever you're doing. And so what I've done is I've taken everything I've learned over the last decade and I've put it into a digestible course where people can start, and we call it, a roadmap from zero to hero, where you're taking your expertise, your real estate knowledge from literally, I have no idea how to write a contract or open a key box, to all the way, hey, I can, be a resource for my family, my friends, everybody in my network, and help them, buy and sell and invest and have all the tools in my toolbox to do so. But the cool thing is I had an amazing mentor when I, the second year I got in the business, I met him, and it really catapulted my momentum and my success early on. And I want to do that for other people. But you can't do that at scale and conserve your bandwidth. So you have to build some sort of community where there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of places they can go to get answers to their questions, but it's not taking time out of your day every single day, hours upon hours. So a big piece of what we're building is, I'm a big fan of Hormozi. I know you are too.
Right.
A lot of people are, because he's just a killer, and his mindset and where he's come from and what he's done is admirable, to say the least. So we're building a course out on the Skool community, as well as Kajabi and a few other places, to be able to help people and give them that silent mentorship within the real estate space, no matter what angle or avenue they're taking, so that we can be a support system and continue to empower brokers and off-market investors and people that are in this space.
couple months ago, I think it was like 2 months ago, I saw you made a post. It was like your first piece of content. You're like, hey guys, I'm going to be making content. And a lot of people, you'll see these posts where it's like, I'm committing to 75 days of doing sit-ups or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you don't see a post after 3 days.
Yep.
I'm going to learn how to do a muscle up. And next thing you know, where's day 3, you know? So talk to me about how because you don't have experience making content, correct?
Nope.
Yeah.
None.
Okay. So
0.
What's it been like, man, to just go from, 0 to like consistently pumping out content, and how are you doing it?
Yeah. I mean, what a lot of people, some people know about me that have been a part of my life for the last, 10 years. And as I got out of high school, but I used to be over 300 pounds and I was very unhealthy. I was incredibly miserable. I had no work ethic. I won't bore you with all the details on why.
Yeah, sure.
But what that did is that gave me a work ethic to be able to go and conquer and apply myself to anything.
What do you weigh now? You're under 200 pounds.
I'm about 190 and you know,
great.
I'm in great shape and I keep consistent with it because consistency is everything and complacency is poison. And what I quickly realized is if I just apply that same drive and that same work ethic to anything that I want to achieve, it's not going to be any harder than losing 120 pounds. Right. So that's where the content came in. And I've always been, in the past, and I'll admit my ignorance was a reason I didn't do it. I felt like it was, for lack of a better term, I felt like it was douchey. I felt like it was, hey, look at me. I'm so great. This is what I've done. You guys suck. I'm the best. But in reality, that's not what it's about. And if you tell your story and you provide value and you stay consistent with it, it can work wonders and it can really build your business. And what I came to realize, and really Hormozi helped me, have this aha moment, which is if you don't have a personal brand, then what do you have? Meaning, if you have a great business, but no one knows about it, if you're in a space where you need to acquire clients and it's a business all centered around networking, you're doing yourself a disservice. So what I realized is that I have an incredible mentee and business partner, Sam, and he has some experience in the content space back in when he was doing, gym content and stuff like that. And we were shooting the shit one morning and we're like, you know what? I've been doing this for 10 years. I've, bought and sold 6 different homes myself. I have a portfolio of rentals. I've coached at a very high level. I've done high ticket sales with large equity firms, wholesale operations, real estate brokerages. Why don't we talk about it? Why don't we put this content out there and share what I've learned, for better or worse, and start to build something here? And so we've, been at it for about 3.5 months consistently. Haven't missed a day, like you said.
Impressive.
And it's really, really stacked momentum and helped us take our business to another level. And I can't wait to see what it does in the new year and moving forward.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you. My journal prompt this morning was, what do you want? And I said, I want some momentum going into 2025. 60 days left today. We're recording. It's November 1st, 60 days left in the year. It's time to get after it.
This is the time to set yourself up for the next year.
Yep.
And a lot of people look at November and December, and I used to do this too, as taking a break, right? My wife and I used to travel all November, December, go to Europe, get out of town, do what you need to do. But what I know now is this is your opportunity to set yourself apart from your competition. And if you spend the next 60 days really diving in to how you're going to, propel yourself into 2025 and beyond, you are going to have a competitive advantage, right? Because the work that you put in is a direct correlation with the output that you get.
Absolutely, man. I don't know if you knew this, but I got into photography and video by showing up to a BNI networking group and calling myself a real estate photographer. My buddy was doing the life insurance. I had done like, photography, like headshots, like senior portraits, whatever. And I just walked in this room and the real estate agent in the group was like, hey, I heard you're a photographer. We need a photographer. She put me on. Her name's Marsha Duncan. Awesome. Real estate agent. I'm sure she's still doing it, and I haven't spoke with her in a while. Probably should reach back.
There you go.
But yeah, man, like I had her and a number of other people just kind of take me under their wing, and I went from literally just kind of faking it till I made it to just getting the experience, getting the momentum. Long story short, man, that was kind of my entry point into
getting your feet wet, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, a portal to the business and to your next step. And again, I always go back to like, you have to stick your neck out there. You have to just take the leap.
Have to take a risk.
And fake it till you make it. Stick your neck out there.
Yeah.
Send it, whatever terminology you want to use. send it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what do you have to lose?
Dude, that's so true. I saw Hormozy was talking about like, why not just give it a shot? Because at the end of the day, like keeping perspective is so important. Gary Vee talks about this, Hormozy, but it's like at the end of the day, you are going to be 2 paragraphs of an obituary, and half of that is going to be thank yous to your nurses and your activities in your nursing home and your surviving family members. So like, what do you have to lose? Steve Jobs also said, like, you are already naked. You might as well just go for it, And yeah, man, I'm done living in fear. I fortunately don't, have those regrets, but I remember thinking forward, like, okay, when I'm at the end of my life, like, what are the things that I'm going to regret? And for me, it was always like balancing, like, do I want to go more the corporate path, or do I want to try and start my own business, be in the entrepreneurial world? And I knew from a very young age, watching my dad, who's successful in the corporate world, that path was not for me. And it is for some people, it is for other people. I've kind of fluctuated on that, but I wonder what you would say to just the concept of building skills, because if you go out on your own day one, it's hard to build skills because you're not surrounded by other talented people. So how did you navigate that? You said you had a mentor.
I had an incredible mentor. His name was Jason Gibbons, and he's still in the business. He's an incredible human, incredible real estate agent, incredible overall person. And he was a catalyst to me learning as much as I did so early on. I got into business myself, and my mom had been a broker for 30 plus years. She still is. She's incredibly successful. But what I quickly realized, I did 8-9 deals in my first couple months by just throwing myself in the fire and talking to people and hosting open houses and making connections. But what I quickly realized was my goals and my aspirations were much higher than my knowledge. And I was hitting a ceiling, and this was right when Redfin was starting to infiltrate the market.
Sure.
And so it became, an obvious need to latch onto somebody that knew more than me and that was doing what I wanted to be doing. And that's where my philosophy of, being a part of a team, being a part of a network, bringing people around you that are already where you want to be, learn from them, grow with them, become such an invaluable resource for them that they can't get rid of you, right? Yeah. Like you provide so much value to them that you are irreplaceable. And that's really what I did. I found out exactly what the people that I looked up to were bad at, and I mastered it in my own time, and I applied it to their business and to our business, which continued to level me up at an early age. Now, I didn't go to college, so I got, a huge jump start on everybody else.
Yeah, you didn't have to waste 4 years.
Didn't have to waste 4 years going to massive debt. I am not the guy that says college is a scam per se, but I am the guy that says if you're going without a rhyme or reason and you're not intentional with your time, then it is a scam, for lack of a better term. You're literally spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to continue to develop alcoholism or start to develop alcoholism.
That's true.
And a lot of the time I've seen friends, I've seen people that I knew that I thought would be very successful. It derails their momentum. It derails their future. It derails what they're capable of, because it diminishes their actions and their inputs early on. So yeah, I think going back to the question, it's who you surround yourself with. I mean, truly, I'm a product of the people that I was intentional with my time and spent time with the most, which is why I love my wife so much, which is why she's grown with me the last 10 years and helped me scale my business and really scale our life and achieve the goals that we wanted.
Talk to me about that, man, because I see your guys' relationship. You even had your daughter making some content with you. How does that work? Is there a pull? Like, is there a challenge? Because you're obviously putting a lot of time and effort and energy into building your business. Yeah. How does she supercharge that? Yeah. Are there challenges? Yeah. Like, maybe tell me a story about how you guys navigate that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to, my favorite word is teamwork. Like, whether you're working in business or whether you're working with your spouse and raising a family or building a life, there has to be teamwork, and there has to be a mutual understanding, and there has to be expectations that are set on both sides of the table. Right. That's how you achieve the dreams and the goals that you have, is by being on the same page, communicating. And she's just an incredible woman. I mean, we met early on, right before I was even a licensed real estate agent, before I really got into business. And I told her my dreams and my goals, and they aligned with hers. She really wanted to have a family someday. She really wanted to be able to be a homemaker and be home with the kids and raise the kids herself. And, early on, we set that
that path out, and we executed on it. And I think a big piece of it is communication and understanding that our goals align. I've had business partners, for better or worse, that we just don't see eye to eye on a lot of the future goals.
Sure.
So I've had to step away from that relationship, right? That business. Same with you. You mentioned that earlier. You've had business partners where, for one reason or another, you just don't see eye to eye on how you want to continue to scale the business. And that's where I think marriage, a lot of it is applicable to marriage too. You have to continue to have an open conversation or an open communication line. You have to be aligned with your goals and your dreams and your aspirations. And if you are, man, it can be so fun because you have a mutual understanding. You're putting the same effort into the same goal. And, pretty quickly you realize that we did this, and we did this ourselves with really no other outside help, by putting all of our goals and our action items in front of us and just doing it, taking care of it. So a big piece of that, and a quick little monologue story I'll tell you. Yeah. So we were living in the house that we bought, our first, big purchase, our dream home that was in North Bend. We were living on an acre. We had everything that we ever wanted. And we just wanted some more sunshine. And her and I had always loved traveling. And, we had been to Hawaii a ton and Arizona a ton. And believe it or not, we sold everything we owned. This was about 3.5 years ago now. And we moved our 1-year-old daughter and our 2 big dogs into an RV, and we left, and we traveled the western part of the States for about 2.5 months. Lived in Zion National Park for about a week, dirt biking, enjoying the scenery, mountain biking, playing with the dogs. Drove all the way through California, Oregon, Utah. Just saw the beauty of what we were missing in our day-to-day lives, of the mundane, going to work, going back home, taking care of things. And it taught us a lot. It taught us a lot about, you have to be willing to just take the leap, whether it's personally, professionally. There's always these pivots and these decisions that, become the reason that you're where you are, right? And a big thing with me is always just taking that leap, for better or worse. And that's what we did. And it built our character. It built our network. Now we get to live, our ideal snowbird life that we talked about in our early 20s. We bounce back and forth between Washington and Arizona. Yep. We have 2 kids. And it's just been a huge blessing to have that teamwork aspect of it. And that's where I always go back to, success is way more fun and way more sustainable with a group behind you, with a team behind you. I think a lot of the biggest success stories come from a lot of people you don't see what they put online or what they give credit to. There's hundreds of people, if not thousands, behind them that have propped them up and helped them get there.
The one thing I hear a lot is, I'm going to wait to have kids until I'm so financially secure that I'll never have to worry about, making money once they're born, type of thing. And, I know when my parents had me, my dad was still in debt in college. My mom had been saving up money, and they didn't wait. And then, just talk to me about like how you guys thought through the timing of having kids, and some of the challenges around like the realities of kids are expensive. Just how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, I have a lot of OCD tendencies. And so I'm a big planner. I understand where every dollar and every cent's going. I understand, the ins and outs of where we are financially as a family, as a couple. And so it was a lot of planning, and it was a lot of preparation, but also it's a lot of, hey, if I have my team and my partners that I trust wholeheartedly, I will send anything, right? I will try anything. And same with my wife. Like, I feel like we're on the same page. We see eye to eye through and through. She was, gung ho about having kids. I was excited to have kids. I wasn't sure it was the right time, but we did it because we were prepared to do so. And I think it's all about prioritization. What's important to you, right? Is it traveling? Is it family? Is it business? Is it all of the above? But you still have to compartmentalize them. What's number 1 priority? What's number 2 priority? What do I actually want to accomplish the most? And then I'll go through the rest of the list. And for us, it was starting a family. And I think that that's where, I don't think there's a magic number of how much money you have to make or how much money you have to have. I know people that make far more than me that are amazing parents. I know people that make far less than me that are incredible parents and incredible humans. That doesn't have, a direct outcome for your children. but it's what can you provide with yourself, your demeanor, how you represent yourself, how you act, how you deal with adversity, because raising children is an absolute circus. You know, like it just is.
Yeah,
for you know, all intents and purposes, it's an up and down game, just like business. And I think that's where I always go back to, like my early days. I was very depressed. I was very unhappy. I hated myself when I got out of high school, and I turned that around by the sheer want to do something with my life and not be, you know, a footnote, like you said, and have a short obituary at the end of my life where it's like, yeah, he graduated high school, he went to college, and then that was that. It's like, what do I want to be my legacy? What kind of impact do I want to have? And I think that's a big piece of why we did it so early, and you know, why I've been able to be successful so early on in life is kind of maturing super fast.
Yeah.
And starting to put those pieces in place early on so that, you know, it happened a lot quicker.
Yeah. So this podcast, We Are Satoshi, the concept, it's really just my excuse to talk to cool people.
Fair enough.
But you gotta have a name and a general direction. Yeah. So the concept is basically like, what gifts are you bringing to the world? And so that's a question, like, I mean, you've already answered it, but like, you know, it sounds to me, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but you've thought through, you know, what impact do I want to have? I think that's something that is a thought that is a luxury to have. Like, you can't just start bringing the best version of yourself, like when you're 300 pounds or when I just got kicked out of college. Like, I'm literally not in a place where I can have an impact on others. So you actually need to go in and you need to do the work.
You need to prove it.
I want to know, man, like, what was that inflection point? You said Hormozy helped you with certain stuff, but that wasn't
recent.
Yeah,
that was very recent.
Okay.
Like, you know, initially, really what was the Kickstarter?
Yeah.
I was 18 at the time. Everybody was heading to college. Everybody was super excited for this next chapter of their life.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, you know, 310 pounds. The doctor's telling me I'm pretty much pre-diabetic. And if I don't get my weight under control, you know, things are going to get really difficult for me. And so what I just decided is, all right, that's not it. That's not my life. I'm not going to allow this to happen. I had a lot of, you know, pent up frustration with myself, really. I projected it in high school sometimes on other people, but in reality, I was just upset with myself. So I got in the gym. I got a gym membership, and day by day, I showed up every single day. I pushed myself to the brink. And that was really the inflection point of proving what I wanted to do and what I thought of myself before talking about it. So when I lost the weight, I went to the other end of the spectrum. I went into bodybuilding. I got into, you know, personal training and that sort of thing. And I realized that when you accomplish things like that, people want to talk about it. People want to ask how you did it. People want to learn from you. Like you just said, you can't really talk about what you've done or help people and empower people and have an impact if you haven't done anything. Right? So you have to actually go out and do the work before you talk about it and start to build your legacy and create an impact. So on the fitness side of things, it proved out my thought process was, you know what, I can do this. And if I just put the hard work in, everybody will see the results naturally, because I'm going to completely reintroduce myself, completely rebrand myself, completely, you know, bring myself to another level that they aren't used to. And so I did that on the fitness side. I did that on the personal development side. And I realized if I do that in business, it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Right? You just have to prove it, do the work, show up, and execute. And once you do, talk about it. That's it. It's very simple to me now, looking back on it, is in the midst of it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to have to go meet with this client or have this difficult conversation. But in reality, all those obstacles and all those things I went through prepared me for what's to come and what my ceiling can be. Because if you don't push yourself, as you know, if you don't get out there and experience things and fail forward, then you're going to stay in the same box, in the same little network, and the same little piece of this earth, and never expand your horizons or achieve what you want to achieve. And it's okay if you don't have grandiose goals, but I do. And I did early on. Yeah. I just compressed them because I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah. That's a huge thing too for me, is like just embracing that you have grandiose goals. It's like you don't want to have an ego. You want to be humble. I heard someone say something like, don't mistake humility for just being shy.
Weakness.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, it's like, I've found myself there. It's like, oh no, people used to ask me, do you want the podcast to be something? This is my third podcast and I'm starting it from scratch. I'm not using the previous followers, whatever, from the previous ones. Had the Adventure Creator podcast, which was at 23 years old, made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Life is about creating adventures and I'm a photographer. I want to, inspire other people to go live life in a more... Life is so cool, and I started to feel that myself when I got out of college. And I remember one time, I've told this story before, but I'll just tell you, I was eating dinner with my ex-girlfriend in Santorini, Greece. You ever been over to Greece?
I have not been to Greece yet.
So it's like a beautiful night. There's music playing, live music. And I had my camera with me and I asked the guy playing guitar, hey man, do you mind if I just like film, you playing guitar? Like I'm just trying, to make videos everywhere I go. It's always in the back of my head. And like, long story short, he just said, you're welcome to, but live your own life first. So don't worry about like, my thing at that time was inspiring other people. Who freaking cares? Inspiration is not an end goal in and of itself. And so if you don't live your own life, how are you going to inspire anybody to do the same? And that really hit me hard. And I reconsidered like how I was approaching my entire creative process. Turns out I actually had the last day I was in Barcelona, I had my camera, my laptop, my drone, and my hard drive with all my footage stolen in broad daylight.
Oh no.
Just right there on the boardwalk on the beach. And dude, I was livid, but everything happens for a reason. My mom always says, bad things happen, so worse things don't happen.
I like
and just
that.
to tie that into what you were saying, like you got to send it. I ride mountain bikes. I ride road bikes. Like we were talking about taking risk in investment. I want to transition to like how you think about your investment portfolio.
Yeah.
And I know you have Bitcoin and real estate. So there's always a dynamic there, especially in the Bitcoin world where people are like, real estate's a shit coin. Don't buy real estate. Just go all in on Bitcoin. But it's like, you also have to live your life.
Yeah.
And real estate clearly can be a tool to build wealth. So I want to kind of pick your brain on that, but you live with risk, man. I ride my mountain bike and I know that I ate shit. I got 8 stitches just taken out of my arm. My mom took them out of my arm the other day. It's part of the game. I love this stuff so much and could have been worse. I was 8 miles from the trailhead when it happened. So I was nowhere. I had to ride like another hour and a half with this sliced open arm and big gash on my arm. Anyways,
that's crazy.
It's all good. And keeping the perspective of like, my brain's okay. I didn't break any bones. Like 2 weeks later, I'm putting a barbell up and I'm feeling good again. So it was like the best possible outcome.
Yeah.
But not about me, dude. Talk to me about how you, like, what does your portfolio look like? If you don't mind sharing, like how do you think about balancing? Like, do you invest in stocks? Has it changed over the years? Like just high level, you don't need to get into details, but like high level, how do you think about taking risk, investing, building wealth, all the above like that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think my investment outlook and theory over the years has definitely morphed and changed based on the people that I have in my corner and I listen to. But I've always been about hedging my investments, hedging my bets. I've never been a guy to go all in on real estate or all in on crypto or all in on the stock market or all in on, a controversial topic a lot of people have, life insurance, cash value policies. I've always kind of found that even ground of how can I diversify myself and hedge my portfolio so that if one doesn't work, but the other does, I'm okay. Right. And so for me, it started with real estate because that's what I knew. That's what I was doing every single day. That's what I was advising people on. There's a large percentage, I don't know the exact number, but there's a large percentage of real estate agents in the country that have never bought their own home yet. They're advising people on how to buy and sell their own homes. So I felt like almost an imposter early on.
There's a lot of crypto advisors who do the same thing.
Right. And so it's like the perceptions reality thing. I know. Put your money where your mouth is and do what you practice what you preach. Right. But for me, I just realized like, hey, if I'm going to be good at something, I need to be really good at it and understand it and then invest in it. So for me with real estate, that's where, you know, my first few investments were, you know, buying rental properties or buying my single family home and living in it and kind of live in, flip, fixing it up and then selling it. But for the crypto side of things, I was lucky early on because I was in the tech space for about 2 years building a title and escrow, you know, tech enabled startup company.
That's right. I remember that. What was it called again?
It's called Modus. And they were, you know, the company stemmed from, I had a couple clients that were flipper clients of mine. And they just went through the escrow process, which is, for those of you that don't understand escrow, it's basically the middleman that transacts and moves all the funds and does all the, you know, the legal paperwork with a real estate sale. And it was just really, really antiquated. And they were all very successful in the tech space already. And they're like, Blake, why don't we change this? So fast forward, we built a really successful company. But what I learned from them was a lot that I didn't have in my own sphere, previously, which was crypto. And they kept talking about crypto and Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these different, you know, reasons why I should get into it. And they were very successful. And I've always been the guy of, hey, if it works for them, if they believe in it, why don't I take a flyer? Why don't I at least take a flyer so that I'm not sitting on the sidelines when things start to go well? So that's what I did. And I kept educating and learning about it. And soon enough, I started I started allocating a lot more funds to crypto. And believe it or not, Bitcoin was one of the big reasons I was able to buy my house early on. I invested early on. I sold, looking back at it. Oh. You would, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I sold a few and bought my original house, which turned out to be a great investment for my wife and I. But I'm a big believer in diversifying. I think that especially as the world continues to, what I feel like, become more disjointed and more, you know, separated, having different investments in different buckets is only going to insulate you further when things go wrong. And now it's not just about me; it's about my wife and my kids and setting my family up for the future. So I think there's a lot of similarities with Bitcoin and real estate in general. I think real estate's a very safe investment because, you know, it's finite. You don't have a unreal amount of land left, especially in Washington State, that you can continue to develop with. Right. Same with Bitcoin. We know that it's finite. We know that there's a certain amount and that's it. And I think those things are the best investments long term, no doubt.
Scarce assets, man.
Scarce assets and assets that you can't create more of. You can create more houses, but you can't go into a lab and create more land. Right? Especially where you're talking about real estate's all about location. And one thing, location. What I love about Bitcoin though is that it's more of a set and forget type of thing, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what I love because I've always had the philosophy since I got into the business is I don't want to be a master of everything. I want to really know my angle and my avenue and learn some other things as well. But I want people in my corner that understand it better than I do. So I have an incredible financial advisor who I will give all of my money that I want to put in the stock market and to life insurance and those sorts of things. He handles it. I trust him with my kids. I trust him with my life. He's been a resource for me from day one. And then Bitcoin is one of those things where you put it into a cold storage wallet, set it and forget it. That's a long-term play. Real estate is really a lot more non-passive. Passive income doesn't exist with real estate. You're always putting out fires. You're always dealing with issues. You've got the houses, the roof is leaking, the washer and dryer busted. I had a rental in Issaquah and the whole thing flooded, and I had to, deal with, mold and all this crazy stuff. That's not happening with Bitcoin.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents on it. Is I think that diversification is the most important thing with investing, especially if you have more than just yourself that are relying on you. But I also think as we're young, taking risks and being more aggressive is something that we have the luxury of doing.
Well said, man. I appreciate that perspective. I don't have a family and kids, so I don't have the same considerations as you.
Sure.
But the way I see it is like Bitcoin is the risk-free return. It's the hurdle rate. It's in my view, the safest place to keep money. And people, to tie into like this conversation that's happening probably a million places around the country right now as we speak. At this minute, for sure. Inflation, right? Yeah. People are trying to find places to protect and hedge, to your word, against this debasement of our currency. So during the crisis of the pandemic in 2021, 2022, $7 trillion was printed out of thin air. And so that was I'm not like by any means like super, intelligent investor, but I got that $1,400 stimulus check and I looked at it and I said, what am I going to do with this? I don't need it. Like I'm living fine. I was actually living in Mexico with my girlfriend. We got out of Seattle because it was just an absolute disaster. People are paying $2,500 a month for a little closet. And then the gym was closed. The co-living spaces were closed. It was just terrible. So we said, screw it. Let's go to Mexico. Rented a place two blocks from the beach for $500 a month, 2-bedroom, high ceilings, beautiful place, safe. Learned how to surf. Like,
you're telling me Mexico's safe? I'm just kidding.
We felt much safer there than we did walking outside of our apartment,
Same.
which we moved into when we got back to Seattle. That was
rhetorical.
We did eventually
I know
come back.
Mexico's safe. There's that like disparaging
so
image of Mexico, but it's a huge misconception for sure.
And so I guess I'm just kind of ranting because I think inflation is the biggest problem that people face, and they use assets like real estate, like stocks, to try and hedge against this debasement, but they're taking risk in doing so. And so the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is you have your job, your craft, your all things real estate. Bitcoin can be something that you just set it, forget it. You don't need to check the markets and trade in and out and which meme coin is going to pump next week and all this stuff. Like we have such finite time on this earth that if you're going to spend 40 hours a week working and then go home and be a financial advisor, that's no way to live. So what Bitcoin has given me is this freedom to realize that I can just work, first of all, build skills, add value, save my purchasing power. That's it. It's not about like getting rich through this investment. I'm 30 years old. I've got at least 20 years before I want to retire. Even if I could retire, I'd probably still keep doing stuff,
Got to have a purpose.
Want to add value. And if I'm adding value, people are going to pay for it. So just like asking that question of like, if money wasn't the thing that was just driving every decision, like how would you allocate your time? That's what led me to start the podcast up again and kind of go from the entrepreneurial world back into just creating. Cause, I do freelance video work and I can save that in the hardest, most scarce asset that's ever been known to man. And it's a beautiful thing, but cool. Let's transition. I don't want to get you too far down the Bitcoin rabbit hole.
One thing important to note though, is you also diversified. You own your own house.
Yeah.
You bought it back in 2021.
Yeah. But I don't own stocks.
No.
I don't own any.
I don't own stocks either. I own a little bit, but most of my investment is right where you're at, which is real estate and crypto.
Yeah. No, I have 4 roommates in my house. It works. My girlfriend and I, we talk about in the future, potentially like having 4 roommates and having kids is not compatible.
Probably not.
I'll have to figure out, how to pay the bills on, I just paid taxes last week. Brutal. Hate paying taxes, especially to indoctrinate the kids. 55% of real estate taxes go to indoctrinate the next generation of kids here in Washington State. I think 5% goes to the police and fire departments. It's just insane.
Shame. Absolute shame. Talk about shame. Wow.
And we got an election on Tuesday, which is just wild. Like, but I'm going to go home and publish this as soon as possible. But anyone who listens after this is going to know the outcome of the election. And it feels like a lot is going to change very quickly. How are you having conversations with people right now in the real estate space? Like my question is, how are people thinking about deploying capital and buying homes? How do interest rates, like, do people have questions about interest rates? Like, how do you answer basic questions just around like, is now the right time? Should I try and move things around and stretch to make this happen now? Or should I wait, and be patient? Like, these are the questions that everyone has,
for sure,
especially if you don't already own a home.
I think my answer, it really depends. I'm a big believer in before giving somebody advice, doing a lot of discovery, understanding why are you asking this question? What is your situation right now? Are you about to be, essentially axed from your current living situation? Do you have a rush involved? Do you have children? Do you have a job that you're moving for? There's a lot of different, factors that play into what advice I'd give somebody. But just like anything else, everybody has their own timeline.
Yeah.
And regardless of the macroeconomic circumstances and what's going on, if you need to buy a house, you need to move, you probably need to buy a house, you need to move, right? If you need to sell your house for any given reason, whether you're just relocating for a job, whether there's medical debt, God forbid, that's stacked up, that you're in a difficult situation, whether you just don't like where you live anymore, people are always buying and selling. The question is, what timing makes the most sense for you? Mm-hmm. And does the current rate structure have such an impact on your ability to purchase that it takes away from what you could buy if you waited a little bit longer, or if you saw how things played out, mm-hmm. right? So for me, I tell a lot of first-time home buyers right now, I say, your entry point, the first-time home buyer entry point in this market, as we all know, is for a single family home, damn near 700,000-800,000, and some of the most, undesirable locations. Yeah. So I think in Washington State specifically, there's definitely an affordability issue, and rates do not help that. Yeah. Now I don't like to get too far into, each candidate and what I think or, the impact will be one way or another. Mm-hmm. But what I do think,
you might get 25 grand if Kamala wins.
Well,
if you're a first time home buyer.
There we go. I think that, and I do think that, with first time home buyers, it's a little bit different because you have to just look at what can I get into? It's all about just taking that first step, mm-hmm. getting your hands on something, mm-hmm. because I've always said this, I don't think your active income actually builds wealth. I think what you do with your active income is where you build your wealth. Sure. So if you're trying to build wealth and you're currently renting an apartment, yeah, you should try and buy something as soon as possible, mm-hmm. within reason, mm-hmm. right? And so I always tell my first time home buyers especially, what's your maximum amount that you're comfortable with? Let's reverse engineer it and back into what your price is, right. and what you're going to put down. Mm-hmm. Now, right now is a very, very hard time to buy a house. It's also a hard time to sell a house. And naturally with, coming around the holidays, things slow down, especially when the weather gets worse here. But it really is a tough question to answer because everybody's situation is so different. I'm always the believer. And if you have the ability, buy, especially in the winter. I've bought every single piece of real estate that I've ever bought. Yep. In the winter.
Yeah, I bought my home in end of November.
Always get a better deal. Yep. Just like all the, I have a little bit of a motorcycle addiction, right?
I can see it.
Yep. It sits in one of mine sits in the office, uh-huh. but I always buy them in the winter uh-huh. because I know that that's when the going rate is lower. Right. Same with cars, especially when you're talking about, a convertible. Are you going to buy your convertible in the summer or the winter? You're going to buy it in the winter because everybody wants one in the summer. Yeah. So with the housing market, it actually is very similar to that. It's still a product and it's a consumer driven economy. So everybody wants to buy when the weather's better. Everybody would rather move when it's not super shitty outside. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's where I think a lot of the advice would come is like, what's your situation? What's the time of year? Are you looking at more of an investment or is it all about, you don't really care about the investment as much as it is, I want to be in this neighborhood. I want to be in this school district. I have kids and this is super important. So your priorities play a big role. But overall, I'm a huge advocate for getting your hands on anything. The first place that I bought, I scraped and had I think $11,500. I had $2,000 left. I put that down on a condo.
Let's go.
And then we turned one of the, the bonus rooms into a third bedroom and ended up selling it for $80,000 more than we bought it for only a year later. Wow. So there's all these different things that you can do that will have a massive impact on your wealth and your ability to buy your dream house or your next house mm-hmm. by just putting that smaller amount into something, less desirable, but saying that it's an investment and mm-hmm. it's working towards your goal. And that's something that I think has been a huge unlock for me over the last 10 years is starting small. Yeah. It's not really the end goal that I want, but I'm also 21. At the time, right? Let me just get my feet wet. Let me just try and buy it and see what happens. Wow. Right? Never had been a landlord before. Rented that place out, bought my next place. Managing a rental with people that are 3 times my age was weird.
That's weird.
Right? Yeah, and going in and fixing plumbing issues and dealing with things like that, it builds character. It builds your skill set. And life always throws crazy things at you. And I think that one of the craziest things that you can, have to deal with is the unknown. And the unknown comes from taking those risks and building your character and building your portfolio or your skill set or whatever your goals are. So, I mean, I think if you're looking at purely investment standpoint, buy now. There's less competition. Rates are higher, but rates are also temporary.
Yeah, they're coming down.
I hope they come down. They've kind of bounced back and forth. A lot of people also don't realize that rates are tied to the bond market. They're not tied to when the Fed says, hey, we're going to drop at XYZ. That doesn't necessarily mean mortgage rates are going to drop.
Right.
So that's another misconception.
The Fed funds rate is not the same rate that you're going to get on a mortgage.
No, has nothing. Right. I mean, does it have some sort of impact? Sure.
Yeah.
But is it directly correlated?
Interesting.
No.
Yeah, man. I had no idea what I was getting into. I bought this house. It had popcorn ceilings. It had 40-year-old carpets.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time. Thankfully, I had my family and my partner's brother-in-law, who's a contractor.
Yeah.
We redid the kitchen, took down the drop-down ceiling, but took out the cabinets and put new flooring in, all types of stuff. And it was a huge amount of time and commitment. So looking back on it, it's one of those things where, like, had I known how much work and pain and grinding and sacrifice was going to go into it, I might not have done it. But now I'm glad that
sweat equity, baby.
Just last night, we got a new roommate in, and we were explaining like what the place used to look like. I'm like, yeah, man, we didn't even used to be able to have this conversation in this room like this because there was cabinets here, and it was an old school house where, the kitchen was designed for one person to be cooking meals and everybody else to be in the other room. Now, the living space revolves around the kitchen. That's where we interact and things like that. But I've learned a ton that I never expected to. I can replace some basic electrical stuff.
There you go.
I got my hands dirty here and there.
The sweat equity that you built, though, that's where that's what I'm talking about is like leverage your active income to build that wealth. And buying that house without it being brand new. Yeah. A, you got it at a lower price point. Yeah. B, that time and all that sweat and energy you put into that house, you definitely gained equity. And C, you gained some skills.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
One topic which I really think aligns well with you. Maybe you talk about this, but I think it's Will Smith says have aerodynamic goals. So instead of being like, I want to be lifting 300 pounds in the gym and I want to run 100 meters in 11 seconds, whatever. Like, no, those are not actually aligned. Like, or whatever. Like, talk about how all of your actions kind of come together to achieve your ultimate goal, which is to be the real estate, the guy that, all things real estate.
Yeah. I mean, my big thing for me is everything that I'm building right now all focuses on one goal, or one industry, which is real estate, which is education, which is helping people, whether they're buying and selling, whether they're building their business, you name it. Every piece of my empire that I'm aspiring to build funnels up to that goal. Right. So whether you're coming and you want to buy a house, sell a house, you're relocating to the area, or you're relocating out of the area, it doesn't really matter. I want to have a suite of businesses that can serve that purpose. So any house is everything off market: residential, commercial, flipping, wholesaling, syndicating, multifamily, whatever you name it. Reside Washington is on the market, is where we're helping you simply buy, sell, invest, things like that. But it's more with properties that are on the market that are available to, the general public. And then Real Estate Roots is our education platform, our education company where, we help agents, we help investors, we help anybody that wants to get into the space or already in the space continue to work towards their goals. And for me, I always had this, this idea that there was a way to tie every piece of the business into one overarching umbrella. And that's what I'm aiming to do. And I really, for me, I really want to be that resource that I had, but a lot of people don't or didn't. It's very hard to find a good mentor. It's very hard to get into this industry and actually find some success. Not because people can't do it, but because they don't know how to do it. You don't know what you don't know. It's way too easy to get a real estate license. It's way too easy to position yourself as an investor and start to make offers and try and do deals off the market. So it's really just a one-stop shop for anything real estate. I've always said I'm all things real estate. It's the easiest way to explain what I can do. 10 years in the business comes with its, learning lessons, trials and tribulations. And I think I'm finally at a position where I can advise somebody in any capacity that relates to real estate.
I got a question for you, which is, what's the biggest mistake that you've ever made in business?
Ooh, that's a good one. What's the biggest mistake I've ever made in business? I think getting comfortable. I think that humans crave comfort, right? And I can speak because I'm a human and I crave comfort. I always have.
Don't we all?
Right? And I think, this sounds cliche, but complacency is poison. If you're a hamster on a wheel and you're doing the same thing every single day, every single week, every single month, and you're expecting some other outcome that other people doing the same thing aren't getting, you're not going to, it's the definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. You think that things are going to change for you by just doing harder and harder and harder work. When in reality, comfort is the opposite of what you need, especially early on in your life. So for me, I think I got really comfortable in a couple of different positions I've been in. And it drove me to be very unhappy. Not because I wasn't making money, not because I wasn't meeting really cool people, but because I felt like I was limiting my abilities by staying in the same place. And that's where, there's two types of people in this world, in my opinion. You got your W-2 workers, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, right? Some people, that's just how they're wired. That's how they're built. Mm-hmm. And you've got your entrepreneurs, creators, you name it. There's a bunch of words for it, but really I just call it entrepreneurs, mm-hmm. right? You're either working for yourself or you're not working for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that the comfort of working for somebody, for somebody like me, is very, very toxic and very dangerous.
Yeah.
It creates this sense of I'm not building anything for myself. I'm just staying in the same place. I'm so comfortable. I get my paycheck every 2 weeks. My bills are paid, but there's no like, I did it, or the breakthrough happened, or, those tokens of like, I actually accomplished that. I actually got through that obstacle. I kept my head up. I kept pushing, and look what I did. And that's where I think the true fulfillment and reward comes from, more so than the monetary gains and, the luxury items that everybody, aspires to obtain. Mm-hmm. I think that the biggest thing is your journey and your story. If it's just kind of like this, that's not what I want. I want like this, but then that comes with this, and that comes back up and it comes back down.
Yeah.
So, to put it simply, comfort. I think that I got comfortable a lot. And when I realized it, the one person that was always there was my wife. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, babe, I'm just feeling like, I feel stuck. I feel unhappy. I feel like I'm just going through the motions. Mm-hmm. She's like, leave. Mm-hmm. Every time I've said something like that, quit. Mm-hmm. Like, you just want me to just quit and just leave? Yep. Well, I've done that a few times now, and every time it's been very nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. And every single time I've had not an ounce of regret.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. I had a co-host on a previous podcast, really great guy. He was at a bar in Guatemala, and this drunk guy said, you're either building your own dream or you're building someone else's.
True.
And that hit me hard, man.
Yeah.
Actually, I left their business. And when I did, I said, guys, like you said it yourself, you're either building your own dream or you're building someone else's. Kind of like, I'm not the guy to just grind on your business if I don't own it, So, anyways, man, that's really, I like complacency is poison is absolutely true. And again, there's nothing wrong with being on a different path.
Not at all. I know some of the,
but just be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like when you look in the mirror, when it's just you, like if you look in that mirror and you're like, I don't like what I see, it's time to make a change.
Live true to yourself. Yeah. And honestly, there's a myriad of people that I know that are way smarter than me that work W-2. Yeah. Just because you work up for yourself does not mean that you're smarter than the person that shows up and works for somebody else. Yeah. It just means that you have the keys to whatever you're working towards. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but if I'm going to build years and years and years of skill set and put time and energy and sweat and effort into it, I want to own that product and that empire, that suite. I don't want somebody else to own it and be able to have me out of a job.
Yeah. So I had a full-time job for 4 years, and I started as a contract video editor. I had never been a video editor. I was at a film festival. I met my ex-boss, who's still probably similar to you with Jason, like the biggest mentor I've ever had, accelerated me so much in my professional career, just literally showed me what work ethic looked like.
Yeah.
And her name's Nasa Kowski, and just awesome human being. But I spent 4 years basically working with this company, supporting someone else's podcast. I was producing, editing, writing some of the notes, the show notes, sometimes actually even writing the actual shows.
Oh, wow.
So this podcast called the Chase Jarvis Live Show, a company called Creative Live. And I felt like I had established, it was a small company, but I felt like my role was critical, right? And
like a sense of ownership.
Yeah, I knew at some point that I was going to have a next step, but I was learning a lot. I was challenging myself. My role was changing over time, which I really appreciated. I had a great mentor who was helping me make that happen. And one day on a Tuesday, basically the company had been acquired by a company called Fiverr. They own, they do like online marketplace.
It's like Upwork, similar.
Upwork, competitor of Upwork. And on a Tuesday, one day they called an all hands meeting, fired the whole company. And I was like, holy smokes. Like me and my coworkers, like we thought like,
we aren't that important after all.
I was like, oh my goodness. Like I was important if we needed to continue executing on this strategy, or the company could just be gone.
Literally.
You know? So that was another one of those blessings where I was kicked on the curb, got a little bonus, which I couldn't believe. Like in college, you can't imagine somebody paying you for a severance package. I'm like, what? They're paying me to leave? Like 6 weeks of full-time pay? So I took that money and I actually, I invested it. I joined the supplement company that had Shroomy and Root Strength. And I think my path is parallel to yours, but I had two major, you could call failures, which is, you start with the business. If you want to start a business, especially in consumer products, it's like a 5 to 7 year game. Low odds of success. Like most businesses fail. Most real estate agents are not in the business after the first bear market.
10% of the money is made by, 90% of the money is made by 10% of the agents. Same with consumer products.
All you can do is take what you learned during that period of time and keep adapting and growing. Yeah. And so, I don't frame these things as failures. Like I left my previous business. I've actually never really publicly shared the story of how it happened. Maybe I will someday. Ultimately, we left on good terms. Everything's fine. It was the right decision for both my business partner and I, for me to step away. But it could easily, like the challenges that I went through in business were so minuscule to like some of the other challenges that I've had physically, getting kicked out of college, having major injuries, just having perspective allows you to like weather those storms way more. So I just wanted to share that. But talk to me about how you think about your business long-term, knowing that there's so much uncertainty in the future. Like, do you have tactically, do you have like a certain like amount of cash flow on hand? You have people, you have a lease here, you got family to support. How do you think through like just how do you think through like your war chest and how you stay in the game?
Great question. It is a lot about weathering storms and sustainability. And I'm a big believer in your people are everything. How I treat people is how I pride myself in how I treat people and how the impact that I feel like I have on the individuals that I spend time with that are around me every day and all day. And, I really am a big believer in legacy. And my two business partners that own this empire that we're trying to build here, they see the same way. And they both are operators just like myself. They both have a ton of success in other industries and other businesses. One of them, Mason Burgle, I've known since we were kids, pretty much. And I think that an undying willingness to never be above something, always being willing to take a couple steps back, to take 10 steps forward, treating your people the right way, and never over promising and under delivering, but always keeping your word, because your word in this world is all you have. And also reflecting frequently. Is this working? Is this not working? You talked about cash flow and, the ability to keep your businesses running. This is a high cash burn business, real estate, especially when you're going at scale like we are. You have to know your runway. You have to be an operator. You have to understand what's going on in the bank account, what's going on with my people. I do one-on-one check-ins with my people every single month, if not every single week, right? We have requirements, we have expectations, but we also take care of them. We also have team dinners. We also have team trips. We also have, the ability to, in sales, they call it a spiff. Like, hey, we're going to throw a spiff on the board this week. If it's essentially like an additional incentive. Okay. If you break the record, you're going to get, a Rolex, or you're going to get, a all expenses paid trip, with your girlfriend, whatever that may be. But incentivizing, gamifying it, making it so it doesn't feel boring. Because work eventually, for the people that are working for you, that are actually building your business, it does get mundane. It does get boring. And being a leader and knowing what's going on behind the scenes with everybody. The businesses that I've failed at is when there's too many cooks in the kitchen and you're not reflecting on a regular basis. And for me, there is no option of failure. It's just pivoting. If something doesn't work, you pivot. The ability to make quick decisions that are difficult oftentimes are the reason that a business fails or succeeds, in my experience, right? And I think that you have to be willing to be wrong and still go down that path anyway. For me, that's been a huge unlock is we have this business. We also have a tech company we're building called PropSphere AI. We just signed a huge lease up the street for a 20,000 square foot office space.
What?
I haven't even talked to you about that, but that's another piece of the what we're building here. And knowing what your runway is, knowing what people you need, understanding, the action plan before jumping into it, but also being willing to not have every piece in place to actually get things started. And that's been where the failures I've had have been the biggest learning lessons. A lot of the time I would overthink everything. Same with making content. Same with having a conversation with somebody. One of my biggest gripes with myself is I'm like, did I say that right? Should I have said that differently? Do I sound stupid? When in reality, who cares?
Who cares?
You can't overthink it. You have to just go forward. Yeah. And if it doesn't work out, look yourself in the mirror, say, did I give it my best shot? Okay, great. Why didn't it work? Learn from it, move on. And that's something that over the last 10 years, and still I'm working on personally, is not overanalyzing and then understanding that it's okay if it doesn't work. Look at why it happened and learn from it. And like you said earlier, everything happens for a reason. Literally everything, right? I'll go back to this story. I met my wife on Tinder. It's the only girl I ever met on Tinder. Nice. My wife, right? Or my business partner. We met on Craigslist. Wow. Believe it or not. Because one night laying in bed, I saw this crazy long ad of, I need help. Help me. I have too much business. Wow. Right? And if you knew Jason, it would make a lot of sense because he's crazy successful. But he posted it on Craigslist.
Unbelievable.
100%. And I saw it. I'm like, this guy seems awesome.
Wow.
I want to reach out to him. Turns out one of the first deals he did in his career was my mom was the agent on the other end.
Oh, wow.
So it's a small world. Yeah. But I think that you find the best people in some places you wouldn't think to look. And the people make the business, right? Like there's a reason that, the biggest companies aren't just one or two people. There's people underneath you that are the engine that run it, and how you treat them and how you impact their lives, not just professionally, but personally, is why they stay around, and retention for me is huge. Keeping the right people in place and making sure that they have everything they need to be successful. And that's really what my whole goal is now, is to have a massive, massive impact on the people around me and the people I care about. I love it. Everything else outside of that, you don't like me? Cool. If you like me, great. It's not my problem.
Absolutely, man. I love that, man. I want to just extract a little more value. I know we've been going for about an hour and, it's just been awesome to talk with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was before kind of preparing for this conversation, I figured because you're building a school community and because Hormozy is kind of a shared person, I guess, between us, is someone that we both
shared
know,
influence,
someone we both learned from. I'll say that
for sure.
he talks about the 4 R's. You know what the 4 R's are? A lot of what he talks about is so applicable across so many different businesses.
Yeah.
But it's, if I can remember without looking at my notes, it's reviews. You want to review every time you have an interaction with a customer. You want to review, you want a referral, you want retention, and you want a resale. So what else what are just some like tangible skills that you've learned either through building your own business or through consuming Hormozi's content?
Yeah. How you treat people. I mean, your reputation is everything, especially in the real estate business.
Yeah, being easy to work with.
Being easy to work with. Having the ability to let things go, I think is a big one. There's a lot of drama in real estate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competition. It really is a dog eat dog world, just like any other business.
Yeah.
And I think that, you can take 10 years, it takes years and years and years to build your reputation, and it takes a second to ruin it. And for me, I've seen people that still are major operators that have terrible reputations, and eventually it will crash and burn them. And I think that long term, those that treat people with kindness and look for the resale, look for the retention, care about reflection, right? And actually are intentional with how they're treating people. To me, that's the most important piece of everything. And that's where, if I'm going to make less money, but I have better people and a better reputation, then I'll walk away from that deal, right? Or I'll walk away from that relationship, because at the end of the day, I'm here for a long time, right? Not a short time. And my plan is to continue to build on what I'm doing, not make as much money in 3 years and then get the hell out of town.
Right.
So I think, Hormozi, myself, anybody that's come from failure understands that where you've come from does follow you. You cannot fully reinvent yourself. How you treat people follows you. People do talk, right? People talk a lot.
Bro, I grew up on Mercer Island.
Yeah, and I grew up in Bellevue, right? Like the two of, people talk. And I think that, I will be the first to admit, in my early years, I was ignorant. And the way that I treated people a lot of time was not okay.
Same here, man.
And I have some deep regret about how, I even go to a certain degree of like, how is that person doing? I remember that one thing that I said that I just should have never said. And a lot of it was just insecurity in my own self and my own abilities. But that's something that I try to live through every single day is, how can I help people? How can I have a lasting impact?
Yeah.
And how can I make them feel it? I think the biggest thing for me is like making them feel that you genuinely care, and that you're not just an imposter saying, oh yeah, I'm praying for you, or you're in my thoughts and prayers, but then it's just out the window. It's like, do they actually believe you? Do you do the things that you say you're going to do? Do you pay people when you say you're going to pay them? That's a big one too.
Big one,
right? Follow through on what your promises are. If it's on paper or not, who cares? Be a man of your word.
Yeah.
And, we don't need to dive into the details, but there's a lot of similarity with past business partners, I'm sure, that we've kind of talked about previously, that, there's a lot of things that if you just handled a little bit differently, could have been a whole different outcome.
One of the things that I learned was have the difficult conversation earlier, because the longer you wait, the more the emotion builds up. And with my recent business, like we just got to a point where I actually wasn't aware that so much resentment had been built up. And so by the time that all the cards were on the table, I was like, oh shoot, like we're already past the point of no return. Like there was no like forgiving each other, hugging it out. It was also, we worked remote and we never saw how hard each other were working.
That's very hard.
He was down in LA, I'm up in Seattle. From my perspective, I'm grinding every single day. This is my life for 16, 18 months, right? All I did was work on this business with zero income for 18 months. He's in LA, he's grinding too. The crazy thing is he was running a marathon per day, every single day. I don't know if you knew that. So we were trying to raise money for the business and we had different priorities. And the way I saw it was, my role was different than his. I was the COO. I was in charge of operations. And in our business, like the way I saw it was that every single customer we're going to build one great customer at a time. And not that he didn't think exactly like that, but he had more of this mindset of like, let's scale it quickly and grow it. And let's, kind of like hit the money on Facebook ads and stuff like that. So we need to raise money to do that. My mindset was like, how do we stay in the game? This is a 5 to 7 year game. We're in the first year, it's okay. Like we felt like we had product market fit in terms of like, people like the product, reviews were great. People it's an effective product. Do you ever try Earthy, by the way?
I tried your Shroomy products.
Okay. So this is a hot chocolate drink.
Okay.
Tastes like hot chocolate, clean energy, pre-workout for endurance sports. Like,
sounds great.
it's a no-brainer. Yeah. People loved it. I still use it. It's a great product. I still list it on my website because I'm proud of what we built. We came from that root strength Shroomy business. Yeah. And we learned, me and this dude, we learned that there's no transparency in the supplement industry. And so similar maybe to what you guys are doing here, it's like we wanted to disrupt the status quo by just being transparent, telling people what's in the package, every ingredient down to the farm level. We could trace down to the farm level. Anyways, I learned, kind of to circle back, I should have had harder conversations earlier. Yeah. So what's advice on that, man? How do you just on it, like you walk in here, Sam and you are here, like you're just shooting the shit, everything's cool. How do you break that like comfort to have that hard conversation? And same thing for Sam. Like, how does he come to you and say like, hey man, I don't like how, we're doing content. I think I'm working too hard. I think I should get paid more, whatever it might be. Like, have you guys had those?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we've had it. And, I think that comes from, I'm a huge believer in setting expectations and honoring them. And for me and Sam and anybody else that works with me, works for me, works in any capacity alongside me, it's all about an open line of communication. There's absolutely nothing personal with any of the conversations that happen. Right. It's you either have the conversation early or it boils over to something like you alluded to that isn't solvable, that isn't fixable. Right. And I think that's where telling your people exactly what you're saying. If you have an issue with what I'm doing, you have an issue with your situation, come to me, talk to me. Let's just hash it out. I've always been a very blunt person. I'm not ashamed to say what's on my mind. I'm very confrontational in that sense. Like if I have a problem with you, you're going to know it. It's
a good trait.
If you come at me, I'm going to stand right up.
Yeah, I hate people that will give you the two-faced thing,
and meet you at your level of intensity, and I'll handle it that way. Yeah. But I would appreciate if it was cordial, right? Yeah. And that's just always, hothead, whatever you want to call it. It's a defense mechanism. Yeah. And every business, every culture needs somebody that's willing to stand up and be blunt and be unapologetic. And I think that being unapologetic is huge. Whether it's my employee, whether it's the janitor that comes through, how do I treat her? Are you good with your pay? Right? Like we have an agreement where we review every 4 months because she's a personal connection of ours. Do you I
think I met her out there. She's really nice.
Yeah, maybe Sam.
Helped me
right?
find the bathroom.
Like Sam got his license 3 months ago. Right? I'm a very unselfish person when you start working with me. Brought him onto all my deals. Here's how I do it. Here's how you can do it too. Here's what I would try doing. He also is this type of person like me where if he has an issue, he's going to come and talk to me.
That's good.
Just 2 weeks ago, we had a not an intense conversation, but a real conversation of, hey, Blake, this is what I'm feeling like. Hey, Blake, you said this. This is what happened. What's your opinion on what's transpired? Right? And you can look at that two ways. You can look at it as a leader, as somebody that's got their mind in the wrong place, or you can look at it as they're taking what I'm trying to give them and they're running with it. If you have an issue, hash it out. If you have a problem, hash it out. But there's no room for pent-up frustration in a business where everybody's here to try and build their career, build their skill set, build their income. It's not personal. And I think that especially real estate, things get personal very quickly. Yeah. And there's a lot of ego. A lot of ego. I won't name names, but there is a lot of ego. And, I think that the people that run their business that way are bound to crash and burn. Yeah. Right. And the people that are willing to step outside of their ego and say, look, what's the reality of this situation? Who did what wrong? Who can do it better? And as a leader, I always try and take ownership. So even if an employee said this or said that, why didn't they execute? it's because I didn't hold them accountable.
Right.
Right.
100%.
And
extreme
that's
ownership. You listen to
extreme
Jocko?
ownership. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Extreme
true.
ownership, always pointing the finger at yourself,
Yeah.
for better or worse. And, you know, making sure that people feel heard. I think that's another thing is I've worked with people and I've given them my 2 cents and I've given them what I'm feeling, and it's in one ear and out the other, and you feel it. And you do not want to work hard for them, and you do not want to be loyal to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to under promising or over promising, under delivering, that doesn't motivate anybody. You don't want to work with somebody that you can't trust their word. You don't want to work with somebody that tells you one thing and the opposite happens and it continues to happen. So communication, expectation setting, right? And being willing to also to say no. Don't be a pushover. Stand your ground, be confident in your value, and communicate. And then you should be able to avoid most of the, you know, the blowovers, the blow ups, the things that are, you know, unfixable.
Blake, where can we find you online? This has been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
Point us towards various places to keep in touch.
Instagram's a great place. Just like everybody else, that's where I really put out most of my content. I didn't have a Twitter or, you know, a TikTok or any of those for, I think, till like 2 months ago, but I'm also on those platforms. So if you go to my Instagram, there's a little link tree. You can see all the platforms that I'm on. My phone number is plastered all over the internet too, being a licensed agent. So you Google my name, you'll find me.
Yep. Blake Ruud-Johnson, right?
Yeah, Blake Ruud-Johnson. My mom is a stubborn woman, so the last name's
She was
hyphenated.
ahead of her time, I guess.
Yeah.
We're having that conversation right now too. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's hyphenated. I think I'm the only Blake Ruud-Johnson that you're gonna find.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Kyle, and it's good to reconnect. And I love to see you crushing it. I've been following from afar, and
thank you, sir.
Hopefully we can hop back on and continue the conversation.
Absolutely, man. This is going to be the first of many. I also need, after we stop recording, I need to pitch you on getting on Nostr, which is a decentralized social media protocol.
Interesting.
I think I haven't seen many real estate agents on there, but
okay.
It's censorship proof. You can't, there's no algorithm that can just like demonetize or shadow ban you or anything like that.
It's a whole nother topic.
As a content creator, I think it's just good to have just to be diversified. I know your time and bandwidth is limited, but I'm going to pitch you on Nostr as well. So
I'd love to hear it.
appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you too, Kyle.
Yep.
Yep. Thanks, man.